So we're at Golden Age Collectibles in downtown Vancouver. We're talking with Lonnie Nadler and Jenna about their new book, Black Stars Above. So what's the book about, guys?
The book takes place in 1887 in rural Ontario, and it follows a young fur trapper who's sort of fed up with her family life, and she decides to run away from home when she's offered the opportunity to deliver a parcel to a nameless town north of the woods.
Cool.
And then some weird cosmic horror stuff happens.
I was going to ask, so it's a horror story.
Yep.
But it seems like a little bit more than that too, right? Like, you were talking about how much research went into it. Like, what inspired this story?
Yeah, so it is. It's hard to talk about because I'm selling it as a horror story, but it's also very much historical fiction, at least for the first bit of it, before it gets super weird. And super into the horror stuff. So yeah, I did a lot of research, reading textbooks about the fur trade in Canada and about the Métis people, because the lead character is Métis. And I spoke to Métis historians and went to the historic village in Calgary to look at like how stuff actually was. And Jenna was forced to look at all of these reference images down to like how they skinned muskrats back in the day and exactly what knives they used and stuff like that. So it's very rich with detail that I hope shows up on the page.
And Jenna, how did you get involved?
I had already worked for the editor of Vault before for a 2-page backup, like the same around the same time, when Lonnie was looking for an artist, and it was kind of just happenstance that he found me on Twitter at one point, and according to the story, he emailed the editor like 2 minutes before the editor was about to email Lonnie recommending me, so I pretty much had no choice but to say yes because of that.
And this is your first solo comic book art project, eh?
It's
artist on a comic book?
It's my first published comic. Yeah, I had some practice. I've like self-published comics before. This is the first time my work has been inside of a comic shop. Yeah.
Awesome. And so how long is the series going to run for?
It's a 5-issue series. Most of the issues are oversized, so it's about the size of 6 issues at the end of the day in terms of content, but it's 5 issues.
Awesome.
Yeah. Some of them get pretty long.
The 3rd issue is particularly long because there's 8 pages of text in the middle.
Yeah, you get a little short story at one point, like a very Providence-esque, just barrage of words in your face of the ramblings of a madman.
Yeah, and if you don't read it, you don't understand the rest of the book.
Yeah, that's good to tell people right away that you're gonna tell them what to do.
I think it comes down to the idea of we didn't want to hold anyone's hand, and we wanted to make the kind of not just horror story that we like, but the kind of comic that we like, and a lot of that is just sort of giving into the artists and writers' worst inhibitions in terms of indulging in stuff that you love and hoping that the reader comes along for the ride. There's a lot to discover on the pages. We tried to design it not like a typical comic in the sense that if you read it and reread it, you keep getting more information and things that you missed just from visual information and stuff that we've hidden in the book. It's
probably best to be regarded as a slow burn than something that you can just kind of blast through. That kind of story probably it's indulgent, for certain people more than others, but I feel like we kind of make it for those people, but we're also inviting everybody who reads it to partake in that kind of experience, even if they don't usually read those kind of books.
Especially with the publisher, Vault typically publishes science fiction and fantasy stories, and their audience is very different from what the general audience for this book would be. So the hope is that we kind of expose new readers to a different kind of experience with the book.
Yeah.
It feels like a really personal story for both of you. Is that your experience with it?
Yeah, it's sort of interesting because it's very it, like I said, it takes place in 1887. It follows a character who is of a completely different heritage than I am. And so it's like a world that's very foreign, but at the same time, I think the themes that we're dealing with are things that are quite universal. And I know that's sort of a cliche to say, but it's, you know, it's about the desire to leave home and the fear that comes along when you finally decide to make that leap to leave your family life. And it's about the fear of being by yourself, and it's also about the fear of becoming like your family. So even though it's this big cosmic historical journey, I think there's a lot there that's human at the end of the day for people to latch onto.
I feel like that's the best kind of treatment of the horror genre, too. I think the horror genre it's a good way for people to explore those kinds of themes without having to actually directly talk about them.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes people don't really understand how to approach those questions until it's visualized in this kind of scope, with these kind of stakes, and with this kind of intimacy with a character.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds amazing. The book is really gorgeous. Thank you both for coming down for it. It's Black Stars Above, and it's out in comic shops right now.
It is.
Yeah, it is.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Awesome. Thank you so much, guys.